Welcome to the Tuesday, March 11th, 2025 regular closed session meeting of the EBMUD Board of Directors. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Chan?
Here.
Director Gomez?
Here.
Director Katz?
Here.
Director Lewis?
I'm here and present.
Director Odie?
I'm here.
Director Smith?
Present.
President Young?
Here. Okay, I did confirm with one of my former colleagues on this board that it is related to what you said in school when they did the roll. So, having settled that, and you guys are going to mock me for the rest of my term as president, I'm sure. Okay, let's move on to public comment. Online, if there are members of the public who wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature now in Zoom. Madam Secretary, do we have any online speakers?
None.
Okay, we do have two public comments. First, John Halseth. And John, you and other speakers will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state your name and affiliation if it's applicable, as well as the topic that you will be addressing. Refrain from providing any personal information such as your address or phone number. If we need that, we'll have you contact staff. And the secretary will track time, and you'll see a little counter in front of you. But 3 minutes is the amount. So with that, she'll tell you.
Ladies and gentlemen of the board, my name is John Halseth. I'm a water distribution plumber 3 with 18 years at the district and the member relations secretary for Local 444. I'm coming to you today to talk about standby pay. Our MOU states an employee assigned to be on call during non-working hours shall receive a premium of 25% of the basic pay during the standby period. That sounds pretty good, but in reality, that standby premium is woefully low. The district schedules its standby in 1 week blocks, and for that week of standby, employees are paid a premium of 25% of that week's salary, or 10 hours of pay. There are 168 hours in a week. Of those 168 hours, district employees spend roughly 40 of them at work, and employees scheduled to standby spend the remaining 128 hours on call. The district pays standby in 8-hour blocks, and for each of those blocks, the district only pays its employees 62.5% of an hour's wage. Broken down to an hourly rate, employees make less than 8% of an hour's pay per hour on standby. As a topped out plumber 3, I make $57 an hour, and I get paid $4.46 per hour on standby. That's only 27% of California's minimum wage. For a plumber 2 making $44 an hour, the district pays them an unconscionably low $3.49 per hour of standby. The standby pay hasn't been an issue prior to now because of the amount of overtime worked. In the past, tens of thousands of defective polybutylene services, as well as aging cast iron mains, kept overtime hours high. Getting 20 to 40 hours of overtime was the norm. Getting fewer than 16 hours of overtime on call was considered a waste of a standby pick, and getting no overtime was extremely rare and horribly unlucky. Planned replacements have nearly eliminated poly services, and over the last several years, the district has tripled the amount of water main replaced each year. With all this failing pipe being replaced, it is now common to get no overtime while on standby, and getting 1 or 2 call-outs per week is the norm. Access to dozens of hours of overtime is no longer an incentive to give up our free time on evenings and weekends. Responding within 1 hour means that you can't go shopping without risking your perishables spoiling in your car. You can't go to the laundromat, and if you're going to go to your kids' sporting events, you need to take a second car. Make sure you keep your phone in your hand so you don't miss a call out in a noisy gymnasium. Instead of fighting over extra standby, employees are now increasingly finding themselves being mandated to backfill standby openings. Local 444 has presented a proposal to increase standby pay, bringing the district's standby pay in line with other public agencies. We hope that you accept our proposal and pay us appropriately, not only for sacrificing our evenings and weekends, but also for sleeping uneasily, worrying about missing a call out. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. I do have one clarifying question for you. When you were talking about the $3 an hour and the $4 an hour, was that multiplying by the 168?
No, so I took, basically, the way it works is we get 10 hours of pay for that week on standby. It's broken up into 16 8-hour units. So I take 10 hours of my pay, divided by 16, and that's what I get per standby unit. And divide that number by 8 to get how much I get paid for an hour on standby.
Okay, I'm still not sure I understand, but I don't think I'll understand by you explaining it to me again. So I think I'll ask staff. I think I'll ask staff to clarify
I was gonna say in the
and come back
policies
to
and
you.
or I don't remember if it's policy or procedure.
Yeah, I just can't do the math in my head, and I don't want to take up more of our time right now, but we will try to get clarification on that.
Okay, thank you.
Next speaker is Eric Larson.
Thank you. Good morning, President Young. Good morning, board members. My name is Eric Larson. I'm the president of AFSCME Local 444. I would like to talk about the health insurance benefit proposal that we have. In order to improve recruitment and retention, the district should provide an employer-paid full retiree health care benefit. The district has not improved the health insurance benefit since 2004 and has fallen well behind its comparator agencies. West County Water District pays 100% of the Kaiser cost at 20 years, plus vision and dental for their retirees. Santa Clara Valley Water District pays 100% of the Kaiser cost at 20 years for their retirees. Ora Loma Sanitary District pays 100% of the Kaiser cost for their retirees at 20 years. Marin Municipal Water District pays the CalPERS middle of the list for a retiree plus one and dental. Dublin San Ramon Water District pays the CalPERS Kaiser rate. Contra Costa Water District pays retiree plus one and vision and dental. Port of Oakland pays Kaiser family with CalPERS reciprocity. It's time for the district to catch up. Our PEPRA members are paying more for a lower benefit. The district has been saving money on that pension benefit. The district should put that pension savings into a fully paid retiree health care benefit to attract, recruit, and retain the best and the brightest into the future. Thanks for your time this morning.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, there are no more public comments or anybody else online. We will now convene to conference room 8 to discuss our closed session agenda item, and there's only one. And we're scheduled to return for the regular meeting at 1:15. Thank you, everyone. Welcome to the regular business meeting of the East Bay Mud Board of Directors for March 11th, 2025. We will receive reports from this morning's Planning Committee and the Legislative HR, our Human Resources Committees, under Agenda Item 11. And I'm told the Planning Committee's report will include a speed record. Can we have roll call, please, Madam Secretary?
Yes. Director Chan?
Present.
Director
Here.
Gomez?
Here.
Here.
Director Lewis?
Here.
Director Odie?
Here.
Director Smith?
Present.
President Young?
Present. Why not? That felt weird. Okay, we have a couple of awards.
I'm sorry,
the
we
20
need to do the Pledge of Allegiance first.
Oh, I'm sorry. There it is. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, now we have a couple of awards. General Manager Chan?
Yes, thank you, President Young. First is, well, they're all from the California Water and Environment Association. The first is the 2024 Engineering Achievement Award for the Pump Station M Rehabilitation Project's Advanced Oxidation Process for Odor Control. The Wastewater Department's Pump Station M Rehabilitation Project received the 2024 Engineering Achievement of the Year Award from the San Francisco Bay section of CWEA. This $7.1 million construction project for a rehabilitation of Pump Station M demonstrated an innovative method for controlling odors. Pump Station M is in a busy residential area of Alameda and directly across from the Amelia Earhart Elementary School, so controlling odors was essential. To do this, the district switched from using sodium hypochlorite to an advanced oxidation process supplemented by carbon absorption. The AOP process uses ozone to neutralize odor-causing compounds, while the carbon collects any odor compounds that are not neutralized. Switching to an AOP system immediately remedied the odor issues. In addition to odor control, to ensure pump station reliability and avoid sanitary sewer overflows during large storms, 4 new submersible pumps were installed, critical electrical and control systems equipment was relocated above ground, a standby electric generator was upgraded, and a new pump station bypass system was constructed to allow wastewater to continue flowing downstream if the pump station needs to be taken out of service in the future. The siding and roof of the Pump Station M equipment building were also replaced and seismic upgrades were made. In addition, crosswalks and traffic signals were modified and upgraded near the pump station to improve pedestrian safety during construction and post-construction. I'd like to congratulate the following project team members, including staff from the wastewater department: William Schaefer, supervising construction inspector; Angela L. Talbani, senior civil engineer; Robert Mack, senior electrical engineer; Donald Pluth, senior construction inspector; Deborah Russell, senior civil engineer; Martin Serena, assistant engineer; Brad Thomas, senior construction inspector; and Rachel Weber, associate civil engineer. Please join me in congratulating staff for a job well done. And Director Odie will be presenting the award to staff. You can do it now, if you like. Go ahead.
I'm going to do this without a microphone, okay? So thank you and congratulations to the wastewater team for your outstanding work on the Pump Station M project and for winning this prestigious award. I'll let you pass it around here. Like the GM said, this project not only enhances the reliability of our wastewater system, but also highlights the importance of our partnership with the community. By using innovative methods to control odors in my hometown, Alameda, the team has shown how creativity and community focus can help us achieve our goals while being good neighbors. Thank you again for your dedication and hard work and the recognition you bring to the district. One more time.
And we have 2 individual awards, although one of the employees, I understand, is not here because of jury duty. The first individual award is for Celia Kitchell. She's an assistant engineer in the Wastewater Engineering Division's Project and Construction Management section, and she was selected for the 2024 Al Dittman Professional Development Training Award by CWEA, the San Francisco Bay section. Celia has served 4 years, 2 of those as chair with the section's Professional Development Committee. This committee organizes trainings and seminars for wastewater industry professionals. The section is one of the largest and most active in California, with over 1,800 members. Celia's efforts have played a major part of the success of the section's training program. And I'll read the next one. This employee, again, is not here. Maxwell Armenta, associate civil engineer in the Wastewater Engineering Division's planning section, was selected for the section's 2024 Outstanding Young Professional of the Year award. Max has been a CWEA member for 5 years and has been a leader in the Students and Young Professionals Committee for over 3 years, where he helped plan engaging events and fostered a strong community. Max also served a lead role on the education planning team for CWEA's upcoming annual conference in April, which typically has approximately 2,000 attendees. The district and others in the wastewater field benefit from both Celia's and Max's contributions to the knowledge and education of their peers. We're excited to have Celia here today to recognize their efforts and achievements. Congratulations, Celia and Max.
Good afternoon and congratulations. On behalf of EBMUD and all your EBMUD family and friends, we are so proud of you. Thank you for all the hard work you do for all of us and for your peers. And again, congratulations.
Okay, once again, great work by our employees. The next thing we have are announcements from closed session. There are none. And then we'll move on to public comment. Madam Secretary, are there any members of the public online?
Speaking with one person, so yes, the hand
Okay,
is up.
so if you are online and wish to speak on an agenda or a non-agenda item, please raise your hand now using the raise your hand feature in Zoom. We will hear comments on non-agenda items now and on agenda items as they come up for consideration. I guess we have one online speaker right now.
One at the moment, yes.
Okay, why don't we start with the online, and I do have one in-person card. You will have 3 minutes to speak. When prompted, please state your name, affiliation, if applicable, and the topic that you'll be speaking on. Please refrain from providing any personal information like your address or phone number during the public comment. If we need this information, we'll have staff contact you. The secretary will call your name when it's your turn to speak. And you will be allotted 3 minutes to speak. There's a timer either on your screen or in front of you if you're in person. I do have the discretion to amend this time, but won't be doing so today. And the secretary will track the time and let you know when your time is up. So with that, our first online speaker.
Kelly Taylor, that's you, correct?
Yes,
All right, your 3 minutes will start now.
perfect. I had seen that this morning there was an agenda item on the updated
Kelly,
plans.
could you state your name and affiliation, please?
Sure,
If
my name
you-
is Kelly Taylor. I'm the South Shore Comanche Homeowners President. I was present at your last meeting with introductions, and I was unable to make the 9 a.m. meeting, so I'm speaking this afternoon. The topic in which I'm discussing is the updated plans for the alcohol and personal watercraft prohibition at Comanche Reservoir. I had seen that this was going to be added to the topic of discussion this morning. I was unable to do so due to work obligations, but I'd like to voice some ideas and concerns that I have. As I have spoke of in the past, these topics were brought to the homeowner's attention on the latter part of last year, and I had spoke at this meeting prior to becoming the president of the South Shore, stating that the residents were very interested in developing a relationship with the Watershed Committee and EBMUD. I've been told several times that the advisory meeting would be that venue. However, the advisory meeting that occurred in November that we attended had already had a rule or a ban that was proposed to EBMUD already put in place, and that was the ban on the alcohol consumption. While it may be hard to understand, or I know alcohol is a topic that is raises a lot of emotion, it is received as the homeowners hear this ban as another rule and without partnership. And that's exactly what I want the takeaway today to be is, numerous times as we've presented at these meetings, we've asked for data on these topics for the personal watercraft and the all of a sudden ban on the alcohol consumption. And we have yet to receive it. We've also asked for a partnership and some additional meetings just with the homeowners. And we have been redirected to the advisory meeting, which I know is to occur on March 20th. Before bans are put in place, it would be my desire and my wish and the wish of the residents, both North and South Shore, as Mr. Butch Carter spoke of at the 9 o'clock meeting, that we come together to solve issues before rules are put into place. Rules have to be governed and rules have to be enforced. And I don't believe that there's that ability to do so. So again, I'm hoping that we can partner with East Bay Mud and Comanche Watershed and readdress this issue. And I'm looking for that concession. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Next up, in person, no other online comments come in? I presume that we have Matthew Taylor, the husband of Kelly Taylor, here with us.
Thank you, Matthew Taylor, South Shore, Lake Comanche. I'm really here in case my wife wasn't able to dial in. So really, we're just looking for partnership and proper representation. I know we do not have one of the people on the board really representing our area specifically. So just looking for a partnership and want to not have rules made without us having a seat at the table. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there are no more public comments. We will move on to the consent calendars, item 1 through 8. I've had a request to set aside item 8. Are there any other items that board members wish to pull for further discussion? Do I have a motion
Move to.
for items 1 through 7?
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Director Lewis, seconded by Director Gomez. All in favor of consent calendar items 1 through 7, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, those pass. Director Lewis asked to have item 8 pulled, and I believe she and Director Smith would like to say something about item 8 before we vote on it.
That's right. I would like to introduce to everyone my standby candidate, who hopefully will never, ever have to do his job because there won't be an emergency care where they can't find me. But if Mr. Wendell Mitchell could stand up and let us see you. I want you to know that should something happen, the person I have asked the board to appoint is a very measured, smart man. He's a father, he's a husband, and he's a ratepayer. He is an attorney. He is thoughtful. He is detail-oriented, but he never loses sight of the big picture or the idea that when you can, you want to do the right thing. Thank you again, Wendell, for stepping up to do this job, and I am very proud to offer him to the board.
Thank you. Dr. Smith?
I've got to say, when I was considering who to tap to be my alternate, I was greatly relieved that Linnell Lewis decided to remain as my outside of my ward representative. Then I got to thinking, okay, inside the ward. Mr. Anderson, would you please stand? Ahmad Anderson is a gentleman within a certain amount of character, dignity, and honor. Raised in Richmond by two parents who were very civically involved. And he cares about what happens with everybody who is around. So, considering his experience in the past of serving as an alternate for his mother, who was mayor of the city, I figured, okay, it might not be that difficult for him to make that switch. I asked him, would he be interested? And he says, well, let me think about it right quick. Got back to me, said, I'd love to. We followed the process. I respect you, I appreciate you, and I hope that everyone else sees you the way that I do.
And with that, I will accept a motion for the positions that we hope none of you have to fill.
So
moved.
So moved.
Moved by
I'll
Director
second.
Odie, seconded by Director Chan. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, we have a resolution. Welcome to the standby officer role for East Bay Mud. We will now move on to determination and discussion.
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, yes.
do we have something else?
No, you got it. So we have Kathy Viatella here, our Manager of Legislative Affairs, to provide the legislative update. We did discuss the three bills that we are seeking support positions on from the board with the Legislative Human Resources Committee this morning, and the committee unanimously supported staff's recommendation. Kathy.
Thank you, General Manager. Good afternoon, President Young, members of the board. It's nice to be before you this afternoon. I want to first start out and apologize and make a correction. The agenda for the committee meeting this morning and the board meeting today identified one of the bills as SB 823 by Assemblymember Berner. It's actually an assembly bill, so it's AB 823. So that is our mistake, and I do apologize for that. So I am prepared to present all three bills that the committee took a support position on this morning, if you would like. If not, if you want to take action on those separately, that is your choice. So please advise, and I can walk through each of them.
Does the chair of the legislative committee wish to
Say anything? Or?
say, yeah?
Yeah, I thought your presentation this morning was very clear and very thorough. I appreciated the fact that you explained how in the past we have supported bills that go in similar directions, so it made it easy for us to feel comfortable recommending a support position. So if the rest of the board feels comfortable with just voting on this without getting a full presentation, I would be totally fine with that as well.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I would like to actually hear something on SB 31 and also an update on the water rate assistance legislation.
Yes, I'd be happy to do that. Any others? Would you like me to pull and just give you an update on the bills themselves for support? I'll do SB 31. Okay, let me turn to SB 31. This is a bill by Senator McNerney. He is a new member of the legislature, and he has introduced a bill that is sponsored by Water Reuse California, and it makes updates to Title 22, which has not been updated in a very long time. So the bill would basically allow for greater use of non-potable recycled water in several ways. So when water is available, homeowner associations would use recycled water for outdoor irrigation. And it would also ensure that the HOAs would not be required to install basically what are the dual plumb systems if the water is not going into a house or one of the residential units. It also clarifies that parks with outdoor eating areas may use recycled water if specified requirements are met, so it's not sort of interacting with an area where people are eating and so forth. It allows recycled water to be used in decorative bodies of water like lakes on golf courses. Director Smith, I did check the bill. This water is treated to a tertiary standard, and so it would protect public health and would not do harm to any other kind of wildlife that may inhabit that pond. So I wanted to check on that for you. And lastly, it allows food handling and processing facilities to use recycled water to flush toilets or urinals and do outside irrigation, again, as long as that water does not enter into a room where food is handled or processed. So it's meant to really assist water and wastewater agencies to expand recycled water for outdoor irrigation at homes, at businesses, and on golf courses. And there would be no additional costs would be incurred by East Bay Mud. This is kind of permissive and optional for us to pursue these other uses. So for this reason, and because we've supported previous legislation on recycled water, we're recommending a support.
So it doesn't, we've had bills on recycled water that had mandates in them about, recycling everything, or this is
No,
a purely
this is-
permissive
This is not one
legislation.
of those bills that is a no discharge to the bay and you must recycle all water. This is expanding the actual uses of recycled water to protect public health and putting in certain specified requirements for that purpose.
Great.
I have a quick question about water purification. I know that California wants to move towards water purification. So do you see this as a conflict?
I don't see this as a conflict, so you're talking about direct potable use?
Yes.
Yeah, so advanced purification systems. I don't see this as a conflict. This is just expanding Title 22 for non-potable uses, as some agencies may want to do that, and then they can continue to advance and move towards the more advanced purification for direct potable reuse.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Do you have a quick update on the,
Well, do you want to take a position on the support bills, and then I'll do the
Sure.
information item?
do I have a motion?
Move to support.
I'll second again.
Motion by Director Lewis, seconded by Director Chan to adopt yes positions on AB 823, SB 31, and SB 394. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Okay, adopted unanimously.
Okay, well, thank
What's
you.
up with the water rate assistance?
Yes. So as I said this morning in the Legislative HR Committee, these are two bills that have been introduced. They were introduced in February. They address water rate assistance. And the reason we're bringing them to you as information items is because it is early days in the legislature. And these are big policy proposals. And we felt like right now, let's get everybody on the same page because there's a lot of background and history. And then as these move through their first hearing, they have been set for hearing, we will then come back to you at an appropriate time and bring these to you for a position. I anticipate there could be some changes coming. So just as background, California's been talking about water rate assistance for low-income communities for nearly 2 decades. And so in 2020, the State Water Resources Control Board released a report that was at the request of the legislature on what it would take to create a statewide low-income water rate assistance program. And since the release of that report, there have been several legislative attempts to establish such a program, but those efforts have been unsuccessful. So SB 222 was vetoed by the governor in 2022. That bill was by Senator Dodd, and it's similar to SB 350, which has been introduced, which I'll talk about in a minute. But it was vetoed by the governor because it lacked an identified funding source. And then last year, SB 1255, which was by Senator Durazo, which had this voluntary opt-out contribution provision to fund such a program, that bill failed to advance out of the legislature last year. So I'm going to give you kind of a high-level overview of the two bills. Please stop me if you have questions. I will pause after each one so we can discuss those. And the first one is AB 523 by Assemblymember Ransom. She's a new member. This is a bill, this is California Municipal Utilities Association's bill. It's sponsored by them. And it enacts the new law in sort of 3 ways. So it grants express authority to urban water retailers to establish a low-income rate assistance program for single residential water customers. And it gives those urban water agencies kind of maximum flexibility of how to do that, how they can set up their programs. And they can be created to provide assistance for rates, for arrearages, and also crisis assistance. It allows the urban water retailers to also receive voluntary contributions from ratepayers. So that creates a potential new funding mechanism for urban water retailers programs. It repeals, this is the second thing it does, it repeals the prior statute that was enacted as part of a state budget on the Department of Community Services and Development that was running the low-income household water assistance program, which we use that acronym LIWAP. And it creates a new LIWAP, so a new program that would be run by CSD, that's the acronym for that department, for water rate assistance to residential ratepayers in community water systems with under 3,000 connections or water systems serving predominantly disadvantaged communities. It doesn't define predominantly disadvantaged communities, but the idea is to target the small systems. So to create a statewide program to provide in low-income water rate assistance for smaller systems. And then it requires the department to use a local service provider, like a community benefit organization or some types of community organization, to help administer the program. This is how LiveWAP was previously administered. So, and then thirdly, it requires enhanced reporting of urban water or urban retail water suppliers through their electronic annual report. That's a report that we submit every year. And that report should include information on whether the supplier provided water rate assistance, the amount of funding used to provide the assistance. If the provider did not, or the supplier did not provide assistance, it should provide information in the report about what were the barriers to doing so. And if they made any progress towards setting up a program, it should provide background on that. And then whether the supplier sought any voluntary contributions and the total number of eligible households that were provided assistance. So this actually is capturing information about what urban water suppliers are doing statewide in terms of providing a program like this. So,
Kathy, so the LIWAP would only relate to systems that serve less than 3,000 people or predominantly disadvantaged communities. So East Bay Mud wouldn't be covered.
correct. It would not be covered.
LADWP would not be covered.
Correct.
It would not cover.
It would not cover the large urban.
Would not
water
cover the systems
agencies.
that serve water to 85% of the state of California.
Right. And I think part of the argument is that those smaller systems have more difficulty setting up low-income rate assistance programs. So this could be done through the Community Services and Development Department would set this program up and work through community-based organizations to administer it and assist the small communities while the urban water suppliers are setting up their own programs. And then it provides those urban water suppliers with a potential funding source through voluntary contributions. So it's creating this distinction, you're right, between urbans and then the small systems.
Is there a report on the efficiency of the third-party NGOs that administered the LIWAP plan under what's it called? Department of Community?
It's the Community Services and
Them,
Development,
yeah.
I mean, yeah.
I mean, I know that's how they operate everything, but
Yeah, the Community Services and Development Department. So you're asking if there's a study on the effectiveness of those CBOs to provide that assistance. I don't know the answer to that question, but I can look into it and get back to you.
because my understanding it was so highly varied.
Yeah, it was varied. In fact, in our service area, it was varied between the two counties. We had different levels of enrollment.
Yeah, so I have some personally very serious concerns about that model in
Okay.
general and the accountability that it has.
Okay, I will look into see if there's been any studies in terms of the effectiveness of the program. Okay, any other questions about AB 532?
So it's a voluntary, y'all go ahead and set up a water rate assistance program if you want to, and if you don't want to, just tell us why, basically.
Correct. Okay.
Is there any cost associated with this program?
There will be cost associated with creating a LIWAP program that would have to be administered by CSD. There are no direct costs to urban water suppliers unless they opt to use the provision to create the voluntary contribution. And then there would be, I presume, some administrative startup costs to implement that. And then there's the reporting requirement that would come as a cost. And the State Water Board would have to have, sorry, I'm thinking out loud as you're asking me. They would have to have some associated cost to actually receive that information and process that, so. But it hasn't, none of that has been quantified yet. It will when it goes through appropriations.
But it got a fiscal note, yeah?
Yeah, I think this was keyed fiscal.
Does
that.
it have urgency or?
No, no, it does not have urgency. Yeah, I'll double check that it was key fiscal. Any other questions about that one? I may stand corrected, but I do believe this was key fiscal. No, it's not going to appropriations, but yes, it's considered a state mandated local program. So we won't have some accounting.
Oh, so it's not gonna go to a pros?
No.
So that means that the ledge analyst thinks that it's de minimis
De minimis, correct.
in terms of the state's cost.
Okay, any further questions on this one? And next I can go to SB 350. Okay. SB 350, this one is by Senator Durazo. And this one, she was the author of the bill last year, but this was that was a voluntary opt-out contribution to set a statewide program. This one is actually closer to SB 222 from 2022 by Senator Dodd. It's sponsored by the 3 environmental justice groups, Clean Water Action, Community Water Center, and Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. So it would establish, I'm just going to walk through the provisions of the bill. So it would establish a water rate assistance fund in the state treasury to provide water affordability assistance for drinking water and wastewater service. So it's doing drinking water and wastewater, whereas the previous one was just water, to low-income residential ratepayers. The state board would be in charge of administering the fund and tracking and managing the revenue and adopting guidelines for implementation of the program. It requires the board to develop and implement a process for the board or a third-party provider contracted by the board to disperse the funds. So, and the funds would be dispersed to eligible systems, and an eligible system means a community water system, which in the code is defined as a system that serves 15 connections or more, a wastewater system, or a participating tribal water or wastewater system. So that is the definition of what an eligible system is in the bill. So the board would be dispersing funds to eligible systems, either some type of contract operator or a third-party provider for direct application to the system's low-income residential ratepayer accounts. It requires the board to identify and contract with one or more third-party providers to support the program. And what that support may look like is it could determine, this third-party provider could determine eligibility, it could operate call centers, it could do internet-based enrollment, it could document intake and processing, and it could distribute the funds to the eligible ratepayers, not the eligible systems, but the eligible ratepayers. So it's kind of looking at different paths of how to get the assistance to ratepayers or to eligible systems. It requires the state board to develop program guidelines, and those guidelines would provide direction to the eligible systems to automatically enroll households in the program. If any member of the ratepayer's household is currently enrolled in programs like CalWorks or CalFresh or some kind of general assistance, or like Medi-Cal, for example, or if the ratepayers is a utility customer of an IOU and they're enrolled in one of their customer assistance programs, and that's the California Alternate Rate for Energy or the Family Electric Rate Assistance Program, either the CARE program or the FURA program. Those are the 2 acronyms. So they would automatically be enrolled if they can demonstrate they're in any of those programs. It would set minimum requirements. The guidelines would set minimum requirements for eligible systems, including participation in a statewide program. So all eligible systems would have to participate. And the ability to confirm eligibility for the benefit through self-certification under penalty of perjury. So they would, a qualified household or individual could self-attest that they were qualified to enroll, which is different from our program. And then the process, those guidelines would also have to lay out a process for determining how implementation will be prioritized among eligible systems if full funding is not immediately available. So this bill does not identify a funding source to pay for the program currently. So, and it specifies that how that prioritization, how they should consider prioritization. that eligible systems that have historically been overburdened by pollution and industrial development or faced other environmental justice hurdles would be prioritized. Now, it doesn't specify how those are identified, but those are essentially, these are frontline communities, communities that are at a disproportionately impacted. And so those would be prioritized if there's not sufficient funding. It requires the California Public Utilities Commission to establish data sharing mechanisms because CPUC has the information on the IOU customer assistance programs, the two I just mentioned, CARE and FERA. So that data would have to be shared with presumably the State Water Board. It's not clear. And then it potentially requires advance payments to eligible systems, but with off-ramps. So presumably if there's some need to have an off-ramp, that's available. And then it defines low income to mean the annual household income that is no greater than 200% of the federal poverty level. So that's different how we define eligibility because we use a tiered system based on income and number of people in the household. But there is language in here that is our language when we were working on SB 222 that says it would not prohibit East Bay MUD from offering assistance to ratepayers that is in addition to or on top of the assistance provided through the program. So we could continue providing assistance through our method. And it would ensure that East Bay MUD is eligible to receive funds for the eligible portion of assistance. So it could be incremental. And then it has provisions in here that would allow the Attorney General's office to bring action in court for non-participation by an eligible system. And it allows the State Water Board to actually condition awards of financial assistance upon participation in the program. So that's a lot to digest. And there's some parts of it which I think still need to be clarified in terms of how the implementation of the program would work. But that gives you kind of a general thumbnail sketch of it. So any questions about SB 350?
So the opt-out is gone.
The opt-out is gone. That is no longer part of this. This has gone back to
Yeah,
the Dodd bill.
this is really different than
This is very
last
different
year's.
from last year's bill. Yes.
Do you have a sense of why?
I don't have a sense of why. I mean, possibly the voluntary opt-out option was complicated, and I think they must be working on, I would presume the sponsors are thinking about, we're going to come up with a funding source. So whether they can come up with a funding source, general fund is probably out of the question because of the budget difficulties. So they may be looking for other funding sources.
Right, because this will get vetoed if it doesn't have a funding source.
Potentially, yes.
I mean,
That's what happened the last time with SB 222.
and, I'm sorry. Just
Yeah, we're
absorbing.
processing the change. You know, I like the opt-out system also. It seemed, reliable, in a way where, if we can't identify the funding, you're risking either a veto or at the mercy of the state budget process, which is very, uncertain and volatile right now. So this brings me to think, while we should support these efforts, and make sure that our interests in having local flexibility to go above and beyond the baseline. I see those amendments to SB, or, the language to SB 350 incorporates amendments that we sought in SB 222. That's excellent. But it does cause me to wonder if the senator chose to not continue with the opt-out because of a opinion, real or perceived, that opt-out would somehow conflict with Prop 218. Perhaps that is a unspoken, concern. What from the perspective of the state legislature might need a 2/3 vote to be able to impose it on local agencies, or the local agency may be able to accomplish the opt-out with its own Prop 218 notice for a replicable program. So I wonder if we could explore that for ourselves. If the legislature can't impose an opt-out program on the whole state without a 2/3 vote, if that's the issue, then, what's to stop a local agency, from using that very, good concept and including it in our 218 notice and pursuing a similar program to the Dodd bill last year. That's It's a thought.
We can ask staff to look into that question for East Bay Mud, and if you go back to the other bill, so it does allow for voluntary contributions. It's not specific whether it is voluntary or voluntary opt-out. So I presume it means a voluntary contribution. It's not the opt-out provision that was in the previous bill, SB 1255, but it's yet to be defined what that means.
Yeah, and I realize I'm using those terms interchangeably.
Yes,
and I
exactly.
haven't fully thought that through yet, but
Yeah.
whichever one is legally permissible, it
Yeah.
would seem like one of them or
Okay.
both are.
Yeah, we can look into that. Other questions?
Jim?
Thank you again. I guess, do you anticipate coming back and asking for us to support this?
I anticipate coming back with a position at some point. I want to wait and see what amendments are made to the bill in the committee. There's some provisions in here that potentially could have a negative impact on our program. So we may have questions about the automatic enrollment, sort of enrolling every eligible customer, because depending on the revenue source, we might find ourselves in a position where we might have to lower our benefit in order to accommodate that increase in enrollment. So that's a question. We just haven't really thought through the math. And without knowing what the funding source is and whether it's a reliable funding source, it's hard to make that determination. There's provisions in here too about self-certification. We don't use self-certification. We looked into the potential issues with self-certification. I can't remember how far back, but several years ago, because that's what the IOUs allowed with the CARE program. And they did a sampling of their customers that were enrolled in that program. And it was 6% of the total enrollees. And of that 6%, 80% of those had to be removed because of either they weren't qualified to be in the program, they determined that through the audit, or they actually weren't providing sufficient documentation. So those are some things that I think staff may have concerns about. So we'd have to go through that very carefully and bring it back. But I generally think, as history has shown, we have been supportive of these bills, if not straight support if amended.
Thank you.
Valerie?
I just wanted to know if there are any critical mass concerns with regard to opt-out in order to have sustainable programs, working programs, and if so, could you give us a better understanding of what they might be?
Yeah, we could look into that. So, so we're speaking the same language. So a voluntary contribution would be, there's a box on your bill and you check, I want to voluntarily contribute $5 to this program. That has been tried. I believe San Francisco SFUC tried it. It did not generate a lot of revenue. What was envisioned last year was a voluntary opt-out, so a similar box, but it just says, it's basically, you're going to be charged $5 unless you check the box to say, I want to opt out of that. So we could do some calculations to figure out what that number would be. But again, I think we did have some concerns that and we worked on language in 1255 last year, that there wouldn't be sufficient revenue to automatically enroll all eligible customers. And so we had concerns about having to lower our benefit. But I'd have to go back
Yeah,
and look
no,
at those
yeah,
numbers.
we looked at that number, and the other thing that in the last year's bill we put in there is that if we couldn't get enough that were required to lower it, we could use that revenue for some
Other
crisis
assistance.
assistance or
Yeah.
arrears management. So we could still benefit the customers, but we wouldn't be forced to lower our benefit.
Yeah, we were trying
And
to
it
do.
would be de minimis cost to us, separate and apart from the state, to implement such a program.
Opt-out would potentially be a lot more revenue for us to manage CAP, but,
When I spoke earlier, I think I did mean opt-out, and the voluntary opt-out, I think, is an interesting way of weaving the terms, but really, I think the definition, is an opt-out in the manner that we're discussing it. I don't know if it would need to be as high as $5 to be able to satisfy the need, but it might be if it requires automatically enrolling all eligible customers. I think we need the numbers on that.
Yeah.
It does raise a question of how do we automatically enroll all eligible customers if they haven't applied? How do we know their eligibility if we don't have an application on file with their current data, which You know, so I'm stuck on that.
And that is one of the issues that was also being considered was, again, the sharing of information from the IOUs or through the CPUC to the eligible systems or through the state board. So that data would then be provided, and then you have a way of calculating who is eligible, and so you would automatically enroll them. That has a cost. That has an administrative cost to actually incorporate that information into our system. So there are costs associated with that.
We've been at this one for a long time, years and years, ever since I've been on the board, I think. That first study was in the works when I first was elected, and the problem's getting worse every year. I would like to see us try to move, really get in there and work to make this work in whatever way. I mean, I think the CMUA proposal has some merit, but some problems. I don't think it'll change the habits of most agencies in the state at all, is my guess. And I don't think it particularly will help us, because we'll just keep doing what we've been doing and provide a report to the state every year. I'm disappointed that, without knowing more, that 350 abandoned last year's thing, because we were really close to being on a support position at the end of the day, and we would have been recruiting other agencies to join us instead of still being a, sort of cheese stands alone. I'd like us to get to a place where we can support something in this area sooner, before August, certainly. But, before, if it's possible to get through the first, does 350 have urgency? Certainly it has a fiscal note, must.
I'm sure it must, but I don't think it has urgency, so.
Okay,
yeah.
but it's gotta get through its policy committee.
Yeah, I think it's got to get through the policy committees, and it's got to identify a funding source. So this morning we discussed,
Yeah, I'd love to see us somewhere on it in a positive way before it goes to the floor, the first house, to the Senate floor. I have concerns about the, third party, this idea that, NGOs will get enough money to actually administer their responsibilities that they have and be accountable. I'm around a lot of these programs around the state, and sadly, I don't think they work because the state doesn't give the NGOs enough money to actually do the program, and it's a way of cheaping out on what should be public services. Should either be done within the water agency or should be done by, public employees somewhere, either county social services administrators or something. So in both bills, I just think it's not the fault of the NGOs. It's the fault that they don't get the resources that they need to adequately administer the programs, or they use the money that they get to administer the rest of their organization in addition to the program, and think that it'll be enough that they can do both. And I've been on both sides of that equation, and it's an impossible task. So I just think it's not a good way to do business. So I recognize it's, the rule du jour these days across state agencies and multiple programs, whether it's climate or water or you name it. So, yeah, I think the state board thing is going to also create a natural opposition point from Aqua.
This, potentially, yeah.
Well, it did before, when it was
Yeah,
the Dodd
yeah.
bill, that was the rankle for them, or a large part of the
Yes,
rankle for them.
yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. Next, we have our water supply update, and we have Roberto Cortez, our manager of water operations, to go through the presentation.
Okay. Good afternoon, President Young, Board of Directors. This afternoon, again, I have another update on our water supply conditions and also an update on what the rest of the year looks like. So I'll go ahead and get started here. Go to that first graph. This first graph that you are seeing on the screen is the gross water production coming out of the water treatment plants. You can see the red line there is the current year. It's been fairly stable since about mid-February. Currently, we're averaging about 157 million gallons per day production out of the water treatment plants. And that's pretty consistent this time of year. No surprises there. This table shows you the current conditions of the storage levels at our reservoirs. Combined system storage is at 81% of capacity and 106% of average for the year. Moving on to the next bar graph here. As of March 5th, the graph here displays that we received about 14.8 inches of rain in the East Bay, which is 72% of average. As you can see, once again, the month of March has been fairly dry. Not much of rain here in the East Bay. However, the good news is that the 10-day forecast does have some activity. There's upwards of 2 inches of rain forecast for the East Bay. And tomorrow, actually, it's supposed to be the heaviest day, about 1 inch of rain tomorrow. So be careful when you're out there driving around. It should be a fairly wet day. So that the 2 inches, if it does fall, that will help our water supply. Moving up to the Montgomery watershed, through March 5th, we received 26.6 inches of rain, which is 76% of average. Again, this shows a fairly dry March to date. However, the upcountry is also slated to receive a good amount of rain over the next 10 days, upwards of 3 inches for the next 3 days. So that should make a difference. The snowpack, here, as you can see, the red line. Interestingly, the red line is very similar to the green line, which is last year. And hopefully that big spike that we saw last year is something that we see this year, because we are expecting upwards of 3 feet of snow. Actually, in the next 4 days, we should see about 3 feet up there. It's going to be a cold storm, about 3,000 foot level, snow level. So we're looking forward to that, and hoping that we do get that much upcountry. This is some data for the snowpack in the state. Statewide, we're at 77% of normal. 77% of normal in the Central Sierra. And this has changed from the beginning of the season. This was much higher, but every day that doesn't snow, the averages drop. So hopefully this turns around over the next 10 days with the storms that we're forecasted to receive. This is a map, a NOAA map. This shows that California, Oregon, into Washington is going to be fairly wet, above average conditions for precipitation. And that does correlate and it's consistent with the other forecast models that we are tracking. So we're happy to see that we have a wet pattern on our way. Projected precipitation for the rest of the year. It's looking, the blue line here is a 10% wet, 10% exceedance wet scenario. Even in the dry scenario, we would have a good amount of rain in the Montgomery. And so every little bit helps throughout the season, so we welcome anything that comes our way. And finally here, our end of season storage projections. Even in a dry scenario, we're looking at 570,000 acre feet in our total system storage. While that will not fill our system, we're well above the drought trigger of 475 that you see there. Anything median or wet will result in a full system at the end of the season. And with that, I'll take any questions.
When does the state determine dry, critically dry, wet, normal? It's April
Some of it
1st?
for JSA.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the April 1st, a snow survey, and then following that, the Bulletin 120 publication. That median number that comes out of that is what will help us shape what determines dry, critical dry, below normal, and so on.
And do we have what do we think?
The latest
March
information.
comes through the way it
Yeah,
says.
right now, we're looking at about 520,000 acre feet of unimpaired runoff. That puts us in a below normal year, just above a dry year. 500 is the cutoff. So we're 299 or below would be considered a critically dry year, and we're well beyond that.
Okay, and then with March, with what's anticipated over the next 10 days,
That should only get things would only improve the situation.
any chance of getting to normal? No, probably not.
It's probably unlikely, at least if the April 1 is going to be what we use. Yeah, there's the indications are that we're not going to get to that point.
Okay. Any other questions? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Roberto. And then in your pack is the monthly report, and at your places is the Speaker's Bureau. And that's the end of my reports.
Okay, which brings us to, actually, if there's any comments on the items I keep forgetting to add this in. The general manager's report? No comments, okay. Committee reports, the minutes from the February 25th, 2025 Finance and Administration Committee meeting were provided in agenda materials. We'll now receive updates from this morning's Planning Committee and the Legislative and Human Resources Committee. For the Planning Committee, Director Chan?
Right, thank you so much. Okay, so there were 3 items on the agenda, and the reports were given and they were accepted. Each report was accepted. The Water Quality Program Annual Update for 2025, the Miller Road Trench Soil Project Update, and the availability of the draft mitigated negative declaration, which I always want to call MIGNEG, but it's actually NEGDEC. And yeah, I like to say NEGDEC, but I forget how to say it. So, okay, so I'm going to be working on that. And the third is the updated plans for alcohol and personal watercraft prohibitions at Comanche Reservoir. So you've heard two of the 3 items here today in the general meeting. But yes, so it was very productive. Thank you.
Okay, and for Leg HR, Director Gomez?
Yes, thank you. So this morning, we heard the legislative update that we all heard this afternoon, a little with the inclusion of the other bills that we didn't hear details about. And we, as you heard, recommended that support position. So we also had a diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan update by Derry Moten. We heard about 3 of the pillars: leadership commitment, workforce diversity, and inclusive culture. And under each one, we had some really good conversation and discussion about those. And lastly, we heard about Assembly Bill number 1484, having to do with temporary public employees. And it helped to increase our understanding about it. The intent of the bill is to ensure that temporary employees are protected by state laws, given the increased use of temps, so as not to undermine public employee labor relations. was it.
Okay, thank you. General Manager Chan, I thought we had discussed moving this item.
Yeah, I
up
was,
in the
I
agenda.
didn't have a chance to talk to you. The last time we met, I was going to talk to you again about the best place to put it as
Okay.
far as committee reports. So I'll talk to you after.
Okay, sounds good. If there are any other items for future consideration, people want to see it on the agenda. If not, at this moment, please submit those to the general manager. And then we're on to director comments. If you've already submitted your written comments, great. If you, to the secretary, if you have any verbal director comments or reports, now would be the time to share them. Director Smith.
Thank you. I will get the written ones to you shortly. So Thursday, February 27th, I went to my first East Bay Wildfire Coalition meeting in El Cerrito. And outside of learning what I learned, I really felt like I was part of General Manager Chan's entourage. There were so many of us there. And people were just like, oh, they with him. So it was great. I'd never seen that type of respect for us in a place before. So keep on doing what you're doing, Clifford. Additionally, on Friday, February 28th. Now, this was something that I was invited to and actually honored. Coalition of Black Trade Unionists awarded me with the Charles A. Hayes Award. And if you've never heard of him, he was, according to our knowledge, the first trade unionist to become a congressional representative. And this happened while I was in high school. I remember him there. So the fact that they awarded me for being a trade unionist and getting elected, it meant a lot. So that's pretty cool. I forgot to bring it with me, but I will have it in my office very soon. On Tuesday, March 4th, I attended the North Richmond MAC as an introduction. And Ian Burrell was there to walk me through. It was great. Tomorrow is my Ward 1 meet and greet, which will be happening at the Richmond Library. And looking forward to meeting new faces and greeting the ones I already know. Thank you.
Go. Yeah, we're just gonna go
right.
around the horn.
So on Wednesday, March 5th, I had the pleasure of attending the San Ramon State of the City Address by Mayor Armstrong. And the City Council is looking forward to a future presentation about East Bay MUD. So hopefully we'll be going to their council sometime this year. On Thursday, March 6th, I attended the swearing-in ceremony for Assemblymember Ana Marie Avila Farias. She is in Martinez and Assembly District 15, the first Latina elected to that position in that district. And yesterday, I attended the East Bay Leadership Council Leadership Series, where none other than Attorney General Rob Bonta was highlighted and presented, including some pointed questions about the current federal administration and water, and what he might do to protect our rights and things like that. So it was fascinating. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you. All right, couple quick updates. Last Monday the 3rd, went to the San Leandro City Council for a brief 2-minute introduction. Thanks to Sung Kwan for producing talking points that got me right to the end of my 2 minutes with no time to spare. So appreciate that. I'll be back in San Leandro on the 18th for the State of the City. A couple things going on this week. Alameda County Mayor's Conference tomorrow, 11 to 1 on Thursday at the College of Alameda. There's the Ward 5 meet and greet. And I think that night we have the Alameda County Special District's annual dinner. Next week, City of Alameda State of the City. Following week, on the 26th, Alameda County Unincorporated Services Committee, and also the East Bay EDA Award. So a lot more things going on in the next couple of weeks here in Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro.
Okay, I don't have much in the rear view, I don't think. Joe, do I? No, but tomorrow, I'm booked. Doing, in the afternoon, I have the Orinda Valley Garden Club presentation, and then the Alameda Mayor's Conference in the evening. I'm forgetting something. Well, I'll report on it in 2 weeks, since it's in the future. Director Chan?
I have nothing to report. But next week looks busy, so stay tuned.
On Saturday, March 1, I attended the 70th anniversary luncheon of the Oakland Bay Area chapter of Jack and Jill, which is an national organization devoted to the development of young men and young women, primarily of African American descent. It's one of the oldest chapters in the West. It's very, very, very nice program. And I have nothing else in the rearview mirror either.
I also attended the East Bay Wildfire Coalition meeting, which covers the communities west of Hills from Rodeo Hercules through Oakland. And was glad to be backing up the excellent staff presentation led by Clifford and David Briggs. And what I gave some remarks that were specific to how we, as an elected body, would interact with their coalition governing body, which, you know, I'm not sure if it's I don't think it's a formal joint powers authority, but it is an MOU that's intended to be a space for the elected officials to meet, given that the fire chiefs and other staff have places where they meet frequently. It was very welcome that the district provided quality information about the way our municipal water system works in the context of firefighting and what it can do in a fire and what it can't do, especially in an urban conflagration. And that was really important information for the coalition to hear. And then we touched very briefly on other land management activities, which I think does need to be a topic of more in-depth coordination between us, the Parks District, and the cities. So that's there was interest from the coalition members, particularly the chair, Supervisor Joya, in having more engagement between board to board. And but we do want to make sure that we keep good pace with what the Parks District is interested in doing, and that's the main context for that. So happy to report what happened there. Thanks.
Okay, I think that concludes committee reports. And that takes us to the end of our agenda, and we are adjourned. Till next time at the 25th of March at 1:15 or thereabouts. Or so.